So a little while back, been about 15 years already. I had a salon client who she owned an auction company. Gosh, I absolutely loved her. She had such an appreciation for people and history and just like all the little like quirky little things that make life look like a life. I mean, gosh, she's walking into these homes after somebody has passed and she's able to actually get to know who they are just by the things that they owned or that they had kept. Whether it's their furniture, their dishes, collectibles, things that were valuable to that person. I mean, maybe they weren't valuable to everyone, but they were valuable to that person. Where she could see stories, the rest of us might walk in and just see stuff or clutter. Anyway, so this particular day that she was in for her appointment, I was actually washing her hair at the sink. I will never forget this. She's like, well, you youngins, things are different now. You live such disposable lives now. I was like, whoa, what does that even mean? I really didn't know how to take that. I was like, oh, am I feeling tension? Like I want to argue that statement. But naturally, I need to figure out what she even meant by that. Disposable lives? Like we don't appreciate antiques? Like we don't appreciate history? We don't appreciate our grandparents' things? Or does she mean that we've just become less attached to things? Because that's not a bad thing, right? It is true that we're not looking for a dining room table or a sofa to last the next 40 years. But overall, our style is probably going to change in the next 8 years, right? We might not even know where we're going to live. Because we do move more often these days. Careers change more often. Do we live in smaller spaces? Maybe. So maybe if we had a furniture set that was passed down, maybe it wouldn't fit in the next house. What I do know is I don't want my kids to have to go through an entire house full of things that they've never asked for and then have to figure out what to do with them. Is that bad? I kind of feel like maybe that's a little bit bad. Or maybe I've just endured so much loss that I'm just unattached to the things and have made my life more attached to the experiences and the relationships that I had with those I have lost. Maybe that's a little bit of what it is. I've kind of learned that the memories can live without every physical object being attached to them. So was she criticizing our era? I'm still not sure. Or was she commending us because we're less materialistic? Disposable. We live disposable lives. That's what she said. Was she being judgy? Or was it just like matter of fact, like, yeah, times are different and that's just the way of life now, is that you live disposable lives? Because I do use disposable things. I'm not going to lie. I know it's not the best thing for the earth, but I absolutely have looked at a sink full of dishes and thought, gosh, paper plates sure sound like self-care. I mean, disposable sometimes is practical, right? Also, sometimes we're just buying what we can afford. Therefore, good enough for right now is the only choice available sometimes. I mean, we do know that the cost of living, the ratio to the household income, that gap's a lot smaller now than it used to be. Plus, I mean, come on, releasing things is healthy, right? Keeping everything because it belonged to someone else, doesn't that just kind of turn our own homes into storage units for other people's memories? Or we have a closet or an attic with someone else's valuables because those things were important to them. I mean, with the amount of people that I have unfortunately lost in a short amount of time, I think that buildup happened with losing my sister more recently than the others. So by the time it got to my sister and I'm going through her things and I'm in her bedroom and I'm trying to figure out what's going to Goodwill and what am I keeping. And she had this cute there was this little girl. I was probably like 1.5 inches tall, just a little mini. She loves mini stuff. So does my mom. And this was on her like headboard shelf thing. And I just looked at it and I just thought, this has got to be something that's valuable to her. There's a memory to it. There's got to be. But no matter how long I held it in the palm of my hand, that memory was not going to transfer to my mind. Therefore, I wasn't ever going to receive the connection of why this little cute little mini girl earned the position to be right next to her head. And so eventually, I just had to say, forgive me, but I'm going to put this in the box that's going to Goodwill. No matter how long I keep this in my palm, I'm never going to remember or connect to why this was special to you. And I felt terrible about it. I still feel terrible about it. But what am I going to do? Like, keep everything from her bedroom because it meant something to her, even though I have no idea why I'm keeping it? I'm not the one that needs to carry it forever. She carried it for her forever. And I think that's why I think maybe disposable isn't automatically bad in every situation. But it still keeps me wondering, where's the line? When does I'm not attached to things or I'm not materialistic become that I don't care for things? Or what about when we say, oh, I can always replace it? When does that change the way we treat something while it's still here? Like, does it just need fixed? Do we maintain things differently when we expect them to last? Are we more likely to fix it because we thought it would last longer? Are we more forgiving to the imperfections from one object to another? I mean, you think about it, if I received an heirloom and it's got a scratch on it, that's kind of part of its story, right? But if I have a scratch on some trendy table I got at IKEA, then maybe that's already becoming the reason why I'm going to start online shopping for a new one. Same scratch, different relationship though, right? Maybe that's more of what she was pointing toward. But the reason why this is profound is because it's not just what we buy. It's the relationship we have with something that we can assume can be replaced. And that's where, if we have these disposable mindsets, then what does this mean in other topics in our life, like relationships? And that's where this conversation came alive in the way I live. Do we live disposable lives? Do you feel like your job's disposable? Your home? What about even your community? Friendships, relationships, pets? Are these things quicker to just leave or throw away because we know there's always going to be another option? What I mean is, are we more willing to leave situations that maybe our grandparents or great-grandparents were forced to endure or put up with or keep in their lives? Is that what living disposable lives means? If we end a relationship, does that mean that the relationship is disposable? Not necessarily. Okay, can something be complete without being meaningless? I don't think every ending means that it was disposable or meaningless. Some things should end or should be released. Some things also aren't safe, or they've just completed the chapter that they were supposed to serve, right? I know it sounds like I'm arguing with her, and I know it sounds like I'm defending it, but I know how much truth is in it, where, at least speaking for myself, I could be better at. And so I do think of this often so that I can choose better. What's that quote? We did only what we knew, and when we knew better, we did better. But I wonder if we've maybe become too quick to rewrite the entire history once something no longer fits the present. Ouch. We leave a job and suddenly every year we spent there, we call it a waste. I think we are quick to doing that. Like, maybe you end a friendship and then you decide the whole relationship was toxic. That can't be. We move and then we get so excited about the new house that it seems like, or we kind of act like the old house, that we never loved it. Or how about those who have left a marriage and sometimes decide that the version of ourselves who chose that person must have been foolish, maybe? That was so dumb of me. Why can't we just simply let something end as is? I don't understand why we always have to degrade it on the way out. Maybe that's the part of disposable living that we need to zoom in on. and we could be better about. Not only releasing something, but needing to make it worthless so that we, I don't know, feel justified in letting it go. Like, why do we do that? Can't we just release something without disrespecting it or outgrow an era without humiliating it? Can't we just acknowledge that something that was once the center of our life just is no longer the center of our life instead of pretending it never mattered? Why do we do that? So by the end of that appointment, she said, tell you what, I'm going to bring you something next time from one of my auctions. And she did. She did. At her next appointment, she walked in with this old glass candy dish. And what was crazy was it reminded me of the candy dish that my old neighbor had when I was little. And I don't think I would have ever remembered that candy dish until she brought it. And I was like, oh my gosh, no way. That woman was like a grandmother to me, and she was right next door. And we loved going over there to get candy. And so the joy that this brought me and the memory, and of course it didn't match my style at all. At the time, I was into this more modern, architectural, clean lines. And this was rounded and antique and old lady looking. It didn't match my home. But what became really cool to me was keeping it out, keeping it where it's always going to be seen. And as long as we've ever had a home ever since, I kept that out front and center. Not because it ever matched my room, it didn't, but it became part of my story. And it holds that client to me. It holds that conversation that we had. But it also like has that kindred connection to my old neighbor from when I was little. It's almost like it reminds me that someone listened closely enough to bring a thought in physical form. So it's like, it's that conversation that day that I have sitting in my kitchen in a physical form. It matches my story now. So when we think about living disposable lives and having disposable relationships with things or people or ourselves, and having this come up again in my mind, made me wonder why I can offer that candy dish so much grace, even though it doesn't match who I am now. Because I do feel I'm so quick to reject the versions of myself that no longer match who I am today. Like I diss her. And I don't want to be that. I mean, look how often we talk about old self, new self. We do this all the time. Maybe we end our day with eating terribly and say, oh, tomorrow I'm going to start all over, do better. So it's new me tomorrow. Or when we blow it up on the weekend and then we're like, okay, Monday. Monday is new me. Never mind this version of me that's blowing it up on the weekend. New me on Monday. Or it's, oh, it's almost the first of the month. I'll just start all over then. Or the first of the year. Or it's when we start that new job. Or once I move. Or on your birthday. Or once you get this haircut. Once you start your new routine. Or simply, how about just once the kitchen is completely clean, we've got a new system we're going to do. It's going to be a new me, and I'm going to cook more often, or I'm going to cut my own vegetables instead of buying them cut. Some future moment where a better version of us is supposedly going to arrive and replace the one that is here right freaking now. New year, new me. New job, new me. Healed me. You know, like it goes on and on. The new disciplined version of ourselves, a new successful version of ourselves. We keep dividing ourselves into versions. And in one way, not gonna lie, it's exciting because it, especially if we're talking about it, because now we've got accountability to stick to that new version of ourselves, that new exciting language. Fresh starts, that just feels powerful, right? New beginnings give us new momentum. And I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to grow or become or be a new, refreshed, new and improved version. We should always want to grow, right? But here's what I wonder. How often our desire to be that next version really just disses the version of the person we are right now, saying that tomorrow will be better. We, will be better. Better than whom? Better than today's version of self? The one who overate, skipped the workout, spent too much money, stayed too long, said the wrong thing, lost her patience, needed comfort, didn't get it all done. Tomorrow's self becomes the improved model. What's that say about who we are today? We're doing our best, but suddenly tomorrow, this person that we are today becomes like that defective product. I don't think that's true, because today we really are doing our best. But already sounds like in advance that today's version of self that's doing our best is getting fired, and there's a replacement coming in for us tomorrow, and we just get thrown away. And then we do it on a larger scale. We look back at an old version of ourselves and say, I can't believe I was like that. Ew. I had no boundaries for myself. I stayed way too long. I was so naive. I let everyone walk all over me. Why was I so needy? That's gross. I cared way too much what other people thought. I should have known better. How did I not see that coming? All the red flags were there. What an unfair vantage. How could she have known? She hadn't lived through it yet. Living through it is what teaches us. How could she have known? How could she have had the wisdom that was created by the experience? She hadn't survived it yet. We only have that now because we went through it. We're on the other side in this new improved version of self, and we're celebrating this character development and look how much I've grown, blah, blah, blah. At the same time, despising the character who is the one that needed to develop. Like, we love the growth, we love the lesson, we love who we've become, but talk shit about the one that actually carried us and got us here, who went through the dirt to get us here. And we're embarrassed of her simply because she doesn't match who we are now. So we just hide her, we mock her, we disown her. We completely replace her. I'm picturing in my mind like a pile of notebooks. And it's like each era or each obstacle we're moving through is a new notebook. So we've got all these notebooks in our life. But what if it was always just one book of different chapters? We're so quick to just throw away those old notebooks of each of those eras. But if it's all just one book, we don't rip out chapter 4 simply because the character gets better boundaries in chapter 12. We don't pretend that the beginning chapters never happened because the writing improved as it went. The later chapters mean something because the earlier ones existed. It's kind of like in episode 13 last week where we were talking about how summertime can exhale because the wintertime inhaled. Those later chapters mean something because the earlier ones existed. Isn't that what self-improvement is? The person we are today didn't just pop out of nowhere. She was carried here. She was the person who tried, failed, stayed, finally left. Yeah, she made some choices that you probably wouldn't make now, but she got us here. And just because we bring her along, it doesn't mean that we're not taking responsibility for the choices that weren't healthy. It doesn't mean that we're going back and living the same way. We're doing our choices differently now. Like that candy dish that gets to sit in my home. It's not decorating my whole house, but it's part of my story. Maybe that's the relationship we can have with our former self. They don't have to be the centerpiece. Maybe they just simply deserve somewhere honorable to just exist. Maybe we look at that version of ourselves and we're just like, okay, you don't match who I am now, but you do belong to my story. It's kind of like, I don't know, this might be weird, but it's kind of like our old versions of ourselves are like personal mini ancestors in our life. Like they carried us as far as they could, right? They survived what they knew how to survive. They made not so perfect choices, but they also had incomplete information. They handed us our next chapter. Those old versions of ourselves, our little mini personal ancestors, We don't have to live exactly like they did. But maybe we owe them more credit than ridiculing them. And just taking it further, how does this change or how does this inspire how we relate to other people too? Like when someone changes, do we hold it to them to stay as the person we knew them to be when we first met them? Well, that's not how you used to be. As though who they used to be is the only version we're willing to accept. Or do we do the opposite? Do we love the new version once they've rejected everything about who they were? Can't we just allow people to grow without requiring them to declare war on their past? I think about how many people leave their high school relationships the way that they were in high school. Like if we graduated and didn't like each other, then when I run into you in a grocery store 20 years later, we should act like we don't like each other still? As if we're both the same version we were in high school? That's always been so weird to me. How about this? Why do relationships end and people say that the entire love was a mistake? That can't be true. And what about with work? Can we leave a job without dissing the person ourselves who once needed that job? Or what about a friendship that you realize no longer fits our life? Can we just allow that to naturally end without making that person worthless or making that relationship worthless? Can we release with respect? This is that disposable conversation. Can we let something be complete without calling it disposable or calling it a waste of time? It's like, no, it completed. It completed its fullness that it was supposed to complete. It's not empty and a waste of time. It's not disposable. It doesn't need thrown away. Like I think about being with my husband. We've been together for 31 years. Neither of us, I mean, gosh, I was 15. He was 16. Neither of us are the same person we were when we first chose each other. Of course not. We were children. 31 years should be a different version of each other and a different marriage. Our bodies have changed. Our preferences have changed. What we're scared of changes. What we want out of life changes. Our dreams change. Our goals change. Our definitions of what love even is, how we define that, has changed. There's probably versions of both of us that will look completely out of place if we dropped them into our lives right now. But that's what a long relationship does, right? It holds multiple eras, or as I often say, we've had multiple marriages within our marriage. Times when I was more needy, times when he was more needy, so on and so forth. It's just, our marriage becomes a home full of things that don't all match. But also, you know what? Maybe that's what makes it ours. But also, that doesn't mean every relationship is supposed to last forever. Longevity doesn't necessarily mean healthy. I remember being a kid of a marriage of my parents, and I remember going through a chapter of time that I wished my parents would get divorced. Because being together doesn't necessarily mean healthy. But I do wonder whether we sometimes confuse those mismatchness. I think it's easy to call them meaningless. And honestly, now that I think of it, maybe it is just easy to call something that changed as being a failure, which is not true of change either. Whether we expect the people in our lives, the relationships, or gosh, even ourselves to always stay perfectly coordinated with the current aesthetic of our lives, that's getting into that whole identity of who we are and how we show up in the world, right? But maybe it doesn't always match. Maybe your personal life doesn't match your professional life. But also, how could it? Maybe the things that don't match are the things that just make your room yours. Okay, so then what does it mean to live a disposable life? I'm still questioning this out loud. Maybe she was putting us down a little. Or maybe she was admiring our ability to release. Actually, maybe there was even a little grief in it, like a loss of a craftsmanship or history. Maybe she spent enough time walking through people's homes after they had passed to understand that the things they kept became part of a record, a proof that they were once here in our lives. That's real, right? Maybe she saw our generation moving through a life with fewer physical breadcrumbs, as they say. I think what stayed with me overall, though, was that, this wasn't about antiques at all. We know that, right? It was a question of value. What do we believe deserves care or maintenance or deserves to be fixed? Really feeling the relationships in that. What deserves to be taken through the rest of the story, even though it doesn't necessarily match? But relating that to what can be released with gratitude. Are we replacing things because it creates a trigger? Is it something that we need to heal that we don't want to heal? So therefore, if we just get rid of it, then we don't have to do the work? Part of this is being less materialistic, right? Because a huge part of that is that's just healthy. Maybe some things are only things. Maybe we don't need every lamp, plate, car, sweater, chair, or candy dish to last forever. But if living disposable is a mindset, I want to stay awake to that curiosity. I want to know where else that's showing up. I'm a minimalist, but I don't want to feel or treat my history as clutter. I also don't want to treat every ending as if it ended because it didn't matter. But lately we've been talking a lot about this relationship with self. I don't want us to be throwing away ourselves every time we have a new self. Today's trying just as hard. Right now, we're making decisions with the information that we have right now. We're carrying things into that future self. Yeah, we're understanding it differently right now, but we'll have the information eventually to understand it in another way. We're doing things right now that eventually will be things that we've stopped doing. We're also tolerating things that someday we're going to stop tolerating. We're learning lessons that one day that newer version of self is going to speak about. And she'll probably speak about them in such an obvious way than it feels right now. But someday, today's self will be that old self. Someday, the person we are right now is no longer going to match that person we're about to become. I keep thinking about this question in my head. How do I prevent my future self from talking shit about this self today? I really hope my future self can talk better about who I am today. I don't want her to look back and, oh, I can't believe you were like that. Or to call me weak, undisciplined, embarrassing, or that I should have known better today. I hope she says, I see you. I see what you were carrying. I see what you didn't know yet. I see how hard you were trying. I see the choices you made in order to get us through that path. I hope she feels grateful for what I'm carrying right now that gets us to the next place, to where I become the next version of myself. Maybe that's what a better relationship with ourselves looks like. We don't have to love every decision we've made, but it's just staying connected, refusing to take away compassion the moment we disappoint ourselves, almost kind of refusing to make our future self responsible for rescuing us from our present self. Because it's not necessary that we need rescued. We just need to keep going, keep developing, keep evolving, keep beginning, instead of just always being against an old self. That's what I mean with tomorrow doesn't need a replacement version of us. We don't need to fire today's version and send in a replacement. Maybe tomorrow just needs the version of us who's already here. We're already here, and we wake up and we just need tomorrow's version to have a little more information. That's it. A little more compassion, a little more understanding. Maybe growth is not a series of selves being thrown away. Maybe growth is just one self continuing to grow. I think of a vine. A vine at its 6-foot mark needs all of the other inches that came before that. If you cut out the first 3 feet, then 1, it's no longer 6 feet long, but 2, you've cut itself off from what it was growing from. That whole time it was learning, changing, turning the page, carrying the early chapters forward. You don't need to bring them forward just so that you can keep rereading them for punishment's sake. You can say, tomorrow I'll be different. Don't say, today I'm disposable. And we can become new, but we don't have to declare war on who we were. I really like the concept and the thought of something having to be complete. It filled its duty. It's complete. We can release what is complete without degrading what it meant. We can build lives that contain materialism, relationships, memories, versions of ourselves that don't all match. But we can still belong. A meaningful life doesn't mean it's a perfectly coordinated room. Maybe it's a room filled with evidence of the growth and the lifestyle that we actually live. Evidence that we have loved, we've tried, we've changed, and that we are here. We've continued to turn the pages. We're becoming people that our old self could not yet imagine. And by making these thoughts and these wonders into a live conversation, bringing this to an online village, those are the things that help us stay accountable, that help us balance what disposable living means, that help us stay awake and test what's okay to be disposable and what we really should be better about maintaining or fixing and valuing. That is who we're becoming in this village. We're all just walking each other home. See you inside.